Alrighty, good morning. If you've been here before, welcome back. If not, nice to meet you. I am Jenny Brandon. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. This is my friend Tali, and we are going to be exercising today, working on her balance in 3 dimensions and her coordination. There are some other videos down in the caption that are down in this playlist that you can find of her previously if you want to see where she came from, which is a long way. For a refresher, she is a Kentucky Mountain gaited horse. She's 25 years old. And 2 years ago, we had a right hind suspensory injury strain. We're going to start out with a poop because, lighten the load, right? Sounds goopy, dear. Good job. And she has been worked once a week for the past 4-ish years, I think. Yeah, at least 4 years. And she consistently once a week for the past 4 years. Prior to that, there was a couple years where she did not get worked much at all, sometimes once a month through the summer, and that was it, which is what sparked the decision for me to begin exercising her on a regular basis, because she and the other horse that are owned by my friend were struggling with behavior, struggling with the farrier, and she is very good evidence that when you put the time in, despite age, they can make some really radical changes in their balance. And she is better now than she's ever been in her entire life, which is just a testament to the work. She has better coordination and balance, organization now than she's ever had. And so we keep working as long as she is willing and able. Ooh. Are we peeing or are we wobbling? Okay, I think that was a wobble. So what's interesting about this work is that when they really begin to figure it out, you kind of just have to get out of their way. And at that point, it becomes more about making sure that the rider, you, are in the right place and maintain that and allow them to figure it out underneath you. So her speed is her choice. You may see her change speed. There's a little bit more right there. But she is allowed to coordinate in whatever way she feels works for her. And my job is to really focus on my seat and my body and make sure that I am maintaining myself so that she can find her organization under me. So from the outside, that looks like a whole lot of nothing. It's a little bit like a duck in water. You have no idea how hard, really, either one of us is working from the visual. But I guarantee you it's a lot more than it looks like. So I am constantly focusing on my seat and what I'm feeling underneath me. I am looking for what we call the bubble. So if you think of a level, like a flat level, if you look at it, there's a round dot in the middle, and that's where the bubble needs to go, right? You want the bubble in the center. And it can go anywhere. The easiest way to sort of describe it is to think of the saddle underneath you in 4 quadrants. So you have a left side and a right side, and then you have a front and a back. And you can kind of divide those 4 axes underneath the center of your seat. And so the bubble can go left front, or it can go left rear, right rear. And the object is, wherever that high spot is where you want to put your weight and your balance. Little distraction. Because that is where they're sort of throwing out of balance. They're falling away on the other side. So the easiest way to identify it is to look for that high spot and sit on it. Sometimes that can actually mean physically moving your seat a little bit, because sometimes they are that stuck. But when they get to this point where she is, it becomes a lot more subtle, and it takes a lot more focus and awareness, because that bubble begins to get closer and closer to the center, which means it's harder and harder to follow. The changes are less gross, so they're less obvious, but they also come a little bit more rapidly. So she is very, very carefully thinking about where each leg goes, where each footfall goes. I can feel a lot of power and activity coming from that hind end, which means that her hind feet are braking appropriately. So braking like car brakes, like slow down brakes. That is where the organization and power comes from when you are working with engagement and collection with a horse. It does not come from the pushing phase of the hind leg, it comes from the braking phase. If you think of running down a hill, how do you create more organization and balance for yourself if you have to run down a hill? You sort of sit back and your feet fall harder forward than they do behind you. So that's kind of the principle, is the organization and power comes from that forward phase of the hind leg, where it is actually breaking the body's momentum in order to organize. So what happens is, as they begin to find that in their hind end, the muscles that support it are weak. The old muscles that were creating organization through tension have to release. And those muscles are kind of all over the body. And what ends up happening is there's this window of time where everything is a little looser and a little more wiggly. So we're kind of in that phase right now. She's sliding in and out of it. So the hind end is getting stronger, and the front end is sort of feeling funny. Like we don't exactly know where to put it. So here's a bit of a wobble off the rail. So I am just loading that inside. That's my sneaky side, my right side. And I tend to underload that side unintentionally. So she started sliding off the rails. That means I need to load that side a little bit more and watch that right shoulder to make sure she's not popping it inward. If she's throwing that shoulder inward and then uses her left front to balance instead of really organizing on that right hind, which was the injured leg. So there's some baggage, some residual feelings about, and sensations, I should say, in that leg from the injury. We all have those, right? When we get a serious injury, it takes a long time to unwind the mental aspect of it as much as the physical aspect of it. So she gets to pick the speed. I am maintaining the direction at the moment, but that is taking very little effort. At this point, it's basically just concentrating on a channel, like we're walking on a sidewalk, and as long as I maintain that focus and look for the bubble, when I am on point, she maintains direction with very little effort. So I'm not really asking for the turns at the corners. I'm only just simply maintaining our space. I'm not really asking for speed either. She is about 95% maintaining the walk, which is lovely because this tells me how much concentration she has. She is really, really super focusing on her body. You can tell her ears are on me, partly probably because I'm talking, but she is very aware of what's going on and is very much internally focused, managing the forces of her body and gravity I hear people coming back from a ride. That's nice. Not a bad day to ride. Kind of on the chilly side, but I can't decide if I'm cold or warm, honestly. So this is really, really great. You're so lovely. Lovely is her word. There we go. Very, very nice. So I like how long her neck is. She's also stretching it a bit more, really experimenting with that. That's a lick and there too, which is great. Tells me there's some processing of what's going on. So one of the other images I like to think of is a tree. My trainer and I were working with this the last time. We had a lesson and just developing the power and solid foundation like a tree. So it's a great image to play with when you're riding, because the object is that you always want to stay level to gravity, so that if the horse were to disappear, you would land on your feet. But part of what that also does is it keeps them seeking their balance, because if you stay organized to gravity, it doesn't throw them out of balance. And so many horses that I've encountered that haven't worked this way expect the rider to make them more unstable, because many riders tend to fall into the hole. Nice breath. Very, very nice. I felt a lot open up underneath the saddle when she just inhaled really deeply like that, which is really good. So that tells me, again, she's getting more organized, more in balance, because she would not be able to take that deep breath if she weren't. So being level to gravity enables you to maintain your space and maintain the quality for the horse, so that the horse can figure out the balance underneath you. Very quickly they figure out that this makes them feel better and not worse, and so they start seeking it out. If you have a horse that does not like to be ridden and doesn't appreciate it, it is not uncommon that the rider is making their life harder and more uncomfortable. So it's worth examining what's going on there in your body as well as theirs. There's a lot of push in the back. So here's a wobble. This is her wobble spot. This is the corner where we're likely to fall off the rail. Everybody always has a sweet spot and a spot where they're going to fall apart. The good news is, once you know where all of that happens, you can begin to anticipate that and look for extending the sweet spot. So can you make the sweet spot bigger, start sooner? And also, can you anticipate where that fall apart spot is going to be, so that you do more to prepare for it before it happens? We have people walking on the driveway. We've got riders coming down the driveway at the other side. None of that matters. We're just going to keep on working. Just a moment of distraction. That's fine. That's totally fine. Good job. There we go. Very nice. Very, very nice. Ooh, interesting. There was some experimentation with the movement and how her leg placement was operating. That right shoulder seemed to kind of open up a little bit. So the image of a tree I started to share is really helpful because you can think about the lower trunk of your body all the way down to your feet really being rooted into the ground and really being deeply settled and connected to the earth. And when you take the time to connect into the earth, that helps you maintain that strong quality into your own core stability. So the fun part is that the mycelium, which are a fungal network that connects to trees, the roots connect to the mycelium, and the mycelium connects to all of the trees. So we can use that image and think of our feet rooting deeply down into the ground, our legs really anchoring into the earth. If you've ever buried yourself in sand, that sort of solid feeling of being anchored in. If you can take that feeling and kind of imagine tapping into the mycelium, being connected to the trees, you can even imagine being connected to a favorite tree or a favorite type of tree if you have one. Just saying hello. Good job, Mama. And so you can tap into any tree anywhere that you want. And that will help anchor your body in with steadiness. Oop, little wobble. Little wobble, little distraction. But nicely organized. Lovely. This is just lovely. It can look like watching paint dry, but it is quite complex and intricate. So we are coming into that sticky spot where we tend to fall apart. So I am going to really focus on the bubble and making sure that my seat stays nice and level no matter where she goes. Really think of tapping into that tree, nice and strong. I like elm trees, nice and strong and deep. I'm going to watch my right side because that's where I often lose it. I feel her kind of wanting to wobble out, but we're going to really focus on it. Adding a little bit of leg on that side just to remind her that. So really weighting my seats down into my leg. There, lovely, much better. Much better. Having fun on the driveway. Nice sigh. Again, great release. And a little distraction from everybody riding by again. We'll go ride with them someday, baby girl. Hello! Come on. All right. Oh, lovely. So that little pause gave us even more balance, which is interesting. find the other key to this work is just the exploration of what's happening. You need a break? What's going on? Interesting. A little more speed, a little more wobble. So sometimes right before things really, really come together, they fall apart. So we had been doing very, very well. And I'm going to check my time here and see where we're at. 20 minutes. Yeah, this is about her max on this side, this direction. So we're going to go maybe one more lap and then turn around if we can make it. There's a little more speed, a little bit more neck movement up and down, which tells me she's getting tired. Oh, there's a change in the front legs again. So working just past their limit is helpful to make sure that you're really helping them find more strength. But you've got to be able to know where that limit is. When it starts falling apart a lot and gets a lot harder, and or you start struggling to maintain it, then that's when you know that you've kind of hit that point where you're not going to be doing any more productive work. Because what comes next is compensation again. It'll be a different pattern, but it's compensation again. And that's what you don't want to have, right? We're trying to undo the compensation patterns of poor movement that have probably been there for the horse's whole life. So the goal is going to be to get another at least 20 minutes out of the left direction. So we're going to come down here and then we're going to think about turning around. So her head kind of going up when she stops, dropping her back, more wobbles. That's telling me that we're cooked on that side. So let's swing into the turn and we'll swing around the other way. It's going to be interesting to see how she turns. Turns are harder. We still have a little bit of distraction. So the goal is to maintain the quality of movement even on the turns. So we want to stay straight, spine straight. Still finding engagement. Nice little sigh. There we go. There we go. Lovely. Ooh, there's a little bit of speed, and you can see the wobbles coming out. So she cannot control her body nearly as efficiently at a faster speed. But the faster speed is how she has organized herself pretty much her entire life. Perfect. So let's see what we get here. This is kind of starting all over, so you have to explore what's going on in this direction because it might be different than what's going on in the other direction. So there we go. There's the organization coming back together again. Slowness. Some wobbles, but yet at the same time I can feel her working on it. So I just look for the bubble, really concentrate on my big strong tree. I can feel that effort coming through from her hind end. I can feel her slowing herself down, making that choice, and having the muscular organization to do it. So this is, I I always feel like I say this is the equivalent of walking on a balance beam for 50 minutes. A very narrow balance beam for 50 minutes. With the goal being walking nice and smooth and fluid without waving your arms all over the place in the air. There's some really nice lift in the hind end again. And a nice breath. Good job. Very lovely. I think we're kind of going through something now. So we're getting inconsistent, but I think it's because something is about to change again. I feel like I might be feeling more width in the hind end. So that's one of the things that happens. Oop, there's a clunk in the shoulder. Good. Something releasing. One of the things that happens as they make these changes is you feel more horse underneath, almost like a table, like you can identify the four corners of the table. There's another kind of wave of expansion underneath her middle again. Despite not being very big, she's not really built narrow, so the narrowness that we've felt is the lack of muscle use. Nice. So it doesn't feel steady, but I'm feeling more range of motion in her shoulders. There's a nice lick and chew. When we go faster, I just sink into that tree. Yeah, there's a little bit of a weird wiggle in one of her legs, her front left that time. And just really sink into that tree image. Look for the bubble, find those roots. And wait for her to reorganize herself underneath. This is also kind of one of those instances where you don't really do anything per se, as in you're not changing what you're doing, you're simply continuing to maintain the space and organize. So we feel like we got a lot going on today. This is a little wobblier than it's been. Ooh, nice. There's some more width again. So I think we are working on something. We'll see if we can work out of this into a little bit more steadiness. If not, then she's just working hard today and has hit her limit. I kind of let her tell me that. And she's good about it, and I trust her. I don't want to injure her again, and this is hard work, as I said, despite the fact that it doesn't look like much. So I am definitely feeling a lot coming from that hind end. There it go. There's a bit more length again, but we wobble. We don't know how to hold it. I think we're unwinding another layer here. It's unusual for her to struggle to the left this much, so I'm pretty sure there's something going on that we are releasing. Oop, clunk in the front again. There we go. Very nice. There we go. So a couple weeks ago we had a pretty huge change in the right hind usage, so not shocking that I'm getting some change in the left, going to the left, because there are, old patterns from the 2 years of her recovery from the strain on the usage she was working on at that point. So we hit a little bit of a weeble wobble in that corner, so I'm going to kind of pay pretty close attention to that spot and make sure that that's not kind of our sticky spot in this direction. Your sticky spot can always change. Sweet spot is often the gate, not always. Sometimes they just rush to the gate. So if it's hard to find where the bubble went upwards, then you can look for the downward force as well, where you feel like things are dropping out from under you. The other trick is looking for the spot with the tension, because if you have extra tension, that means that you're gripping to hold on. So you can find the tension and then go to the opposite side. So the struggle is interesting in this direction, but we're going to see how we do. Good. So we're now at 30 minutes, so we've been going this way just under 10 minutes. Now let's see how we are in about 5 minutes. Oh, woolly worm, don't walk into the path of travel, please, friend. There's a pretty big wipeout, which is difficult for me to maintain, so I'm looking for the tree trunk and just guiding her back to the rail gently as we can. There's a nice lick and chew. I think we're peeling off another layer here. I don't think this is the extreme fatigue struggle. I think this is reorganization struggle. She's sorting something out. So I also let her choose the direction when we start. I don't ask for a direction. I just ask her to walk off the mounting block. She happened to be oriented more to the right today, but I also know that if she wants to go left, she'll turn around and go left. So she chooses. And she's been picking right for the last couple of weeks, which again was her quote worst side. So it's interesting because back at the beginning of the end of October is when we sort of had a big change in this right hind usage. And she picked left for a while the next couple rides after that. And then since about 2 or 3 rides ago, she's been picking right again. So it's not shocking me that we might be peeling off another layer of tension and dysfunctional use headed to the left now. Warming up a little more than the other days. I'm seeing woolly worms again. I don't know why they think crossing the Great Sahara of an arena is a good idea, but they do. Nice sigh, head down, nice sigh. Very good. Lovely. So really being particular with my body and my balance on this corner. Much better. And there's another lick and chew. There we go. It's not fun to wait through these moments, but the issue is if you quit because you think something is wrong or because you think they're fatigued, then they'll never get through that shift. They'll never make it through the change. Definitely feeling some stuff going on in that hind end. So really putting my focus back there, kind of riding the back half of the horse. Like pay no attention to the man in front of the mirror. So if we don't get this kind of smoothed out in the next 5 minutes or so, then we'll call it quits. But she's definitely putting in a lot of effort here, so I don't want to quit without being really sure that we've worked through as much as we can. That's nice. There we go. "36 minutes. Let's see if we can make it just a little bit more. There's another pretty big wipeout, but pulling herself back together pretty rapidly. Lovely. Lovely. Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and call this quits shortly. Let's see if we can get just a little more. Nice sigh. So the hard part is when they start to wobble like this, is it means you need more focus and more organization in your own body to make sure that you are... Are we having a poop? What's going on? Huh? Making sure you are maintaining the organization and not falling into the bad habits or the old habits with them. Very nice. All right, I think we're going to have a go at finding a halt. And that was beautiful. We'll take that, sweet pea. We'll take that. There's a nice sigh again. And a lick and chew. Excellent, Mama. Excellent. Very good. 0.65 miles. Average speed 1 mile an hour. Very good. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.